everybody. Welcome into the spread. NESN.com's football picks podcast. I'm NESN.com's Mike Cole. That's Ricky Doyle, and we're joined on the phone from sunny California by Andre Khatchaturian. Andre, how you doing?
Hey, Mike, Ricky, how's it going on?
Yeah,
Doing well.
Yeah, how's it going?
We just powered through our Thanksgiving
right.
edition.
Yeah, so if you're watching this and you haven't watched the Thanksgiving episode, or you're listening or whatever, I don't know, the playlist, maybe do a playlist of the spread, queue it up, open in another tab, download if you're on your phone, do that. Again, a lot of content to consume.
If you're listening to this on Friday, Saturday, or even Sunday, either disregard what we just said, or hey, give it a listen and see how we fared.
And you got to listen to the end too.
True.
A nice little Easter egg hidden in there.
Time treat.
Or a turkey egg, if you will. Anyway, we're back here. What we're going to discuss here is Week 13. And we're going to do a little differently. I thought he was like interrupting me. He's just laughing, just chuckling out of nowhere.
I was thinking about what the turkey egg was, and I remembered what it was.
Yeah, okay. Just out of 10 seconds.
Before you start, guess how many turkeys are killed every Thanksgiving? Don't Google it.
30 million.
More.
65 million.
Less. 46 million.
Wow. Great.
I didn't know we were going to be handicapping turkey
Yeah,
deaths,
no kidding.
but hey, that's where we're at.
I would have had the under there.
You know? We crunch all the numbers here at the spread.
All right, yeah, and the spread. As I was saying before Andre got the joke 10 seconds late, what we're going to do here is make our against the spread picks for the three best games of the weekend, not including the Thursday night games, because we already touched on those, as we already mentioned. We will be skipping locks and upsets this week. That's just because it would be damn near impossible to figure out locks and upsets for the three of us. So we'll give that, we'll punt on that, but you can check out all of our picks at NESN.com/odds. On Wednesday. We'll get those up a little bit earlier this week as well. So, without further ado, let's get to the Sunday games starting Sunday afternoon. This has the potential to be the NFL's game of the season. The San Francisco 49ers, coming off a supreme ass-kicking of the Green Bay Packers, head east to take on the Ravens, who are coming off their own supreme ass-kicking of the Los Angeles Rams on Monday night. The Ravens, as it stands right now, are 6-point favorites. The total sitting at 46. Weather doesn't seem to be an issue. And as I mentioned, a 1 p.m. kick. Ricky, who do you like here?
Speaking of that supreme ass-kicking that the Ravens laid down, did you see Eric Weddle's quote regarding that?
No, I didn't.
He said, we got our faces peeled off, which I guess is a pretty good way to describe how that game unfolded.
That sounds about right.
It was early and often, an onslaught by Baltimore. And I think they keep it rolling this week. And much of that stems from, I look at the 49ers. We were way wrong on them last week going into that game against Green Bay.
Very wrong.
Really thought that they were in a position of vulnerability. Some injuries there. Green Bay was coming off the bye. Just a lot of things pointed to the Packers being able to go on the road and win that game. Obviously, not coming to fruition. But this week, I still think the 49ers. I guess the one game, or two games really, that I can point to so far, those Cardinals games, going up against Kyler Murray, a mobile quarterback, and also to a lesser extent the Russell Wilson. The game
they've talked about that already in the fallout, leading into that game.
So those are two mobile quarterbacks who have given that 49ers defense problems. They're obviously facing a whole different beast this week in Lamar Jackson. Just to note that the Murray stats: 41 of 57, 391 yards, 4 TDs, no interceptions, 114 rating. Also carried the ball 13 times, 101 yards, and a touchdown. So, that's something they're going to shore up. And just in general, if there's a way to beat this 49ers defense, I think it is on the ground. They've been susceptible to giving up big plays through opponents' rushing attacks. We weren't really able to see that in the Green Bay game because the Packers they fell behind so early.
Yep.
So if this is a situation where Baltimore is able to get out, rely on that rushing attack, and I mean, that seems like something that is well within the realm of possibility, given the fact that the Ravens are such hot starters, first in the NFL in first quarter points per game, and first half points per game. So I do. I just think it's a situation where they're going to be able to rely on that rushing attack, wear down the 49ers defense. And we've seen Lamar Jackson make some throws, all around impressive. So it's a decent chunk of points that you're giving up here in a matchup that is really could be a Super Bowl preview for all we know. But I do like the Ravens in this spot.
Andre.
Yeah, I agree. I'm just going to keep rolling with the hot hand, just like I came last week and said, you got to roll with the hot hand, the Ravens against the Rams, and they took care of business there, and going to keep rolling with that hot hand. It's just the quality wins that they have. Seattle by 14 points. Patriots by 17 points. Houston by 34. The Rams by 39 points. They're crushing good football teams. They're not just winning by a field goal late in the game because they got lucky from a bad call by the officiating. They're crushing quality NFL teams. This is the best team in the league. There's a huge gap between them, between 1 and 2. I was wrong about Lamar Jackson in the beginning of the season. The guy can throw the ball. Since week 6, 69% completion percentage, 13 passing touchdowns, 5 rushing touchdowns. The year Cam Newton was MVP, the guy's completion percentage was trash. Lamar Jackson's completing passes. The guy knows how to play. He's only 22 years old. And then last year, we were all criticizing him. This is from Warren Sharp. He's a big Lamar Jackson advocate. He tweeted this before the season. He said, there's been only 11 quarterbacks in NFL history to attempt at least 150 passes when they were 21 years old or younger. This was Jackson's rookie season. And Lamar Jackson was one of those 11, and he ranked number 1 out of the 11 in passer rating, even though his numbers were meh. He was 21 years old. We should have all given him a break. This year, he's gone to another level we've never seen before. What are the 49ers going to do in this game? He already crushed teams that are better than the 49ers. He's going to do it again this week.
The thing with Lamar Jackson, I will point out, he was horrendous in that playoff game. I think that kind of carried over.
They were playing the Chargers, and the Chargers
No, I know.
Differential team.
No, I'm just saying. I think that probably swayed some people's opinions, and it was the most recent thing that we saw of him. So that's it. And you know what, too? The Ravens done a terrific job of building around him. They've found, I thought, getting Mark Ingram was a perfect pickup for them. It kind of just fits into what they're doing. They addressed it through the draft, where they get Hollywood Brown, who's a versatile guy, and we've seen, Boykins have success. Mark Andrews he's Lamar's favorite target. They've done just a fantastic job building around him. I'm also going to take the Ravens here. It's a lot of points when you're playing arguably the second or third best team in the NFL, but kind of to Ricky's point, I look at, who could start the fastest in this game. You've got the number 1 first quarter offense going up against the number 3 first quarter offense. And really, if you look at the numbers, I think Baltimore is number 1, New England is number 2, and San Francisco is number 3. And the stats might point to New England, but I think that's long gone now at this point. I think really these are the best, fastest starting teams we have left right now. As long as Baltimore can get out there and score first, or at least keep San Francisco off the scoreboard early, I think that's going to go a long way in helping them win this game. In San Francisco, they clearly want to play out in front. I thought, we were on the wrong side of that game Sunday night, but it'd be interesting to see how that game kind of flipped around. If Devontae Adams doesn't get called for that penalty early on, and if Aaron Rodgers doesn't drop the ball as he's falling to the ground and give them that game's over at 7-0. It was pretty nuts. I don't think that same thing happens this week. You got a Ravens team that scored on 7 of their 11 opening drives this season, and really once they get out in front of you, they just throttle it down and they go. It's really been one of the most impressive things about this offense is that they just continue to kind of to Andre's point, just pace people. They're outscoring their opponents 99-24 in the first quarter of the season. And, Andre mentioned this as well. They've been doing it against good defenses. I think, obviously they did it against the Patriots, the number 1 DVOA defense entering last week. They did it against going into the Monday night game. The Rams had the number 8 DVOA defense going into that game, and they just absolutely dump trucked them as well. So they have success against good defenses, bad defenses, everything in between. They have an early down success rate, 4th best in the NFL. San Francisco, that's on the ground, San Francisco defensively in the same spot against the run, number 23. San Francisco, very good early down success rate against the pass, so I expect Baltimore to really run it heavier than usual, especially early in downs, and try to just establish that early on and neutralize that San Francisco pass rush, which is something Green Bay absolutely could not do. And the Ravens defense getting better.
Let's not overlook
DVOA,
that.
Yeah.
Third in yards allowed per play since week 6. Ravens defense.
Nuts. And against at least in name good teams.
Russell Wilson.
Right.
Tom Brady.
Yeah.
Rams.
The Rams, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, the
well,
Rams.
it was interesting that Rams game though. I mean, their willingness to blitz defensive backs and just really dial up pressure, which I could see sort of being the play here, and get Garoppolo under some pressure here, make him, force him to make some throws. And if that's a situation where it's which quarterback is going to be able to handle the pressure better, I'm going to take Lamar Jackson.
Yes.
I mean, I think that the stats bear that out, and also just from an anecdotal standpoint, the way he's performing right now, MVP frontrunner.
Yeah, and it's interesting too. Like,
how fun is it to watch too? I yesterday was a blowout. Monday night was a blowout game, but I thoroughly enjoyed watching every Ravens drive. It was just exciting stuff.
it's like watching a
Different.
dominant college team. It's just it can be one-sided, but you look at it, it's like they're doing something different. The guy is capable of breaking a play at any the drop of a hat, which you shouldn't be able to do with guys who run. You got linebackers who run 4.7s, and it's like he's just blowing by him. It's nuts. So I don't know. That's good. 7's a lot in that case. So hopefully or 6 is a lot. Hopefully we're wrong, because then we're going to have a real close game. I think that's a very interesting matchup there. So there's certainly a case to be made for San Francisco if they get out early and kind of somebody at some point you would think is going to figure out something with the Ravens. So maybe the 49ers is that team. But
that's the thing with the Ravens, and I mentioned this to you the other day, is I want to see how they respond when they're down 10 points in the fourth quarter or something, and they have to march down the field and throw the ball, have a more traditional offense than what they're accustomed to running.
If they win this game, I think they have to be the clear-cut Super Bowl favorite too, because you've gone up against some really good defensive coordinators, whether it's Bill Belichick, Wade Phillips, the Salah in San Francisco, and if you're just putting up 35, 40 points against all those teams, it's like maybe we're not going to find an answer this year. I don't know.
Well, that's the thing, is like how sustainable is this over the long run?
Yeah.
I
think the health of the quarterback is the biggest thing too.
But I mean, it could be sustainable for at least the duration of this season. You know what I mean? Like it could be. Yeah. You might not find a solution until it's back to the drawing board.
And then everybody spends the entire summer trying to figure out how to.
So maybe then maybe they come out and they lay an egg and they go 7-9 next year. Like that wouldn't shock me. But for at least as it relates to this season, I don't know. It's
kind of like Andre said. It's getting tough to doubt them. Like it's just every week they do it. So.
The spread for this game was 4.5 points before the game yesterday, the Monday night game.
Wow.
And then jumped to 6. Interesting. Anyway, continue.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that the Ravens plus 184 point differential, which is the best in the NFL through 11 games since 2009 when the Saints.
Wow.
And we all know how good that Saints offense was. They eventually won the Super Bowl.
Correct.
So.
Alrighty.
I like the Ravens a lot. It's just in general, like that's going to be tough going to Foxborough AFC Championship. But I mean, it's the Pats lose a game. I mean, that game's going to be in Baltimore then.
Yep.
It's different too, because I feel like for a while there, the Ravens, even when they were good, were a very boring team to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like I said in the spread season preview. This is not going to be your father's Ravens team.
God,
They've
no.
completely flipped the script, and actually the defense has been better than I thought it would. So good for them. They're a legit Super Bowl contender. So speaking of legit Super Bowl contenders, Sunday night you got the Patriots going to Houston to take on the Texans. 8:20 kick. Total sits at 44.5. I did not write down the spread, but I am smart. I believe that it is 3 points in favor of the New England Patriots, who are coming off of that aforementioned. Actually, that was not aforementioned. We mentioned it on the other show. They beat the Cowboys last week. The Texans are coming off a Thursday night divisional win against the Colts. Big game for the Texans, because the Colts and the Titans now are nipping at their heels, whereas the Patriots are going to want to keep pace with the Ravens, assuming they win in the AFC. So a lot at stake for both teams here. Ricky, who do you like in this one?
You pointed in that last episode to the Cowboys special teams.
It's a train wreck.
And how it is graded the worst in the NFL according to Pro Football Focus.
Yes.
And we saw that in the most recent game against the Patriots, in which the Pats obviously had that big blocked punt that led to the only touchdown in that game. The team ranked one spot ahead of them, number 31.
Yes.
The Houston Texans.
Oh, that's not good.
So, maybe this is another situation where the game shifts on a big special teams play. I do think the special teams have been, for the Patriots, when we're sort of evaluating how they've been able to overcome these offensive shortcomings to this point, I think the special teams have been a little bit underrated just because of how good that defense has been. But I could see that playing a factor this week. And I also think this is a week for, just in general, for the Patriots offense to maybe get right. I mean, you look at the Texans defense, obviously for so long we've talked about that pass rush, which obviously now isn't working with J.J. Watt in the lineup. But, if the Patriots are able to give Brady some time, I think this is an opportunity for the Patriots to get right. You look at the drive stats, Texans 16th in yards allowed per drive, Patriots 4th in net yards per drive, which is basically the difference between how your offense and defense performs from a drive standpoint. And in terms of how the Patriots are going to generate that offense, I think this could be a big game for James White. Texans allow the most receptions and the second most receiving yards to running backs. White targeted just 3 times versus the Cowboys. I thought they'd use him a lot more, especially given the conditions. Maybe just get the ball off to him, in space, especially where the other weapons were not really stepping up. A few drops here and there. So I think this is maybe a situation where White gets back in the fold a little bit, and I think the Patriots roll this week.
Andre.
Wow, man, you made some good points. I had Texans, but I don't know. Ever since Ricky started opening his mouth, I kind of want to side with the Patriots now. But I do think the Patriots win, but I think the Texans cover that 3-point spread. I think it'll be a close game. I think the Texans are very similar to Dallas. I think Deshaun Watson's a better Dak Prescott. Hopkins is a better Amari Cooper. And, they're also an excellent running team. They average 5 yards per carry, and we know New England's biggest weakness on defense is stopping the run. They're in the bottom 10 in yards allowed per carry. Games in Houston, I think the Texans get the running game going. They're going to be better rested because they're coming off a Thursday night game. And Deshaun's played well against the Patriots, both on the road. He's played the Patriots twice on the road. He's kept it within the score each time. And I think because of those reasons, the Texans keep this one close and cover. But I do think the Patriots win. That
feels like a situation where you were on Houston just from the start and found ways to talk yourself into it. You don't seem very convinced. Maybe that's credit to Ricky.
And we've all been there.
Yeah.
No, look, you're right. But then I never really thought about the special teams until Ricky brought that up. Then again, that kind of plays into the Texans are kind of like Dallas. And guess what? Dallas covered the spread in that game.
Sure.
So, you know what? I'll take the Texans to cover this spread.
Okay.
Texans, I should note, entered Week 12 ranked 27th in yards allowed per drive. I was looking at the net yards per drive, which factored in their offense, which I think you could make the case has been much better than their defense this year.
I would agree.
So,
okay.
As you were.
I'll take the Patriots as well. I think that this has been it's been a main point for me recently, especially this week, whether it's a Thanksgiving show or this one. Coaching, it's a big thing. You're going to go back to last week. We talked about the Cowboys earlier. Talked about the Cowboys last week. That proved out to be pretty pertinent in that game, and I think it is in this one, especially when you look at the fact that Bill O'Brien 0-5 straight up against the Patriots, 1-4 against the spread, hasn't had much success against his old team and his old boss. I thought, Ricky, you mentioned it too. I wanted to hit on this as well. Houston not very good against running backs through the air. And you go back to that Week 1 game, was it last year in 2018, the game that I think the Patriots actually covered. They won 27-20, and that game was not even that close. There was a couple of garbage time scores late there. In that game, the Patriots targeted running backs 13 times. So I think it's going to be another big game for James White and Rex Burkhead, who have really been kept relatively quiet for much of this season. I think they kind of
surprising last week.
Right, and I wonder if there's something with the matchups there that we're not really
especially
noticing.
With Leighton Vander Esch out, you just assume that maybe you would rely on that a little bit.
To that point, that brings me to the next point, is Houston looks like they're going to be without Dylan Cole, linebacker, who is unheralded to an extent, but he's a big special teams guy. You mentioned the special teams thing. He's also been strong in coverage against tight ends and running backs for them this year. So you take him out of the picture, that kind of is a ding against two of their bigger weaknesses. That defense is just really not that good. They've been even worse without J.J. Watt, at least in terms of generating a pass rush. Brady's been pretty poor against the pass rush this year, so if you're not going to get back there, he's going to have a chance to light him up a little bit. They're banged up in the secondary. They're 26th overall in DVOA defensively, 26th against the pass. I think this is a game where we're going to get a lot of chest bumping from people in New England saying, "Whoa, what happened? I thought Tom Brady wasn't elite anymore." It just has this game written all over it. I think I wouldn't be surprised if the Patriots romp here.
Yeah,
which means they'll probably lose.
I agree. And like when I look at teams that are going to cause problems for the Patriots, it's those teams that run the ball and cause problems up front. And then maybe the Texans do that to some extent. But like when I think of the Texans, I think of their outside threats. The Andre Hopkins and Will
which
Fuller.
we didn't even really touch on. Yeah.
And from a Patriots standpoint, I mean, we've seen it with Stephon Gilmore just completely shutting down the number one target on the opposing team.
And they've really done a good job against the number 2 target.
That's what I mean. So I think it's going to be difficult for Houston to move the ball this game.
Maybe a big game for...
I'm going to officially change my pick. You guys made great points. I'm going to take the Patriots as well for a lot of what you guys said. I also don't want to look like the idiots who didn't take the Patriots.
Jesus.
And we also don't have a Patriots pennant come crashing to the floor.
I should have known.
On our set this week.
Yeah.
I should have known. Man.
I mean, you guys are right, especially Ricky. The point you made about pass catching running backs and the Texans allowing the second most receiving yards to running backs. I mean, yeah, I think that's going to be a huge factor in the game. And you take into the fact that N'Keal Harry, I think he's going to be a big factor for the Patriots down the road. Just kind of having like a Dez Bryant type of receiver in the red zone. Patriots have kind of struggled in the red zone this season, and then you saw what Harry can do to that red zone offense. Just a big body, you can throw it up there anywhere, and he's going to get it. It's kind of like Dez Bryant. And you get the Isaiah Wynn back, and this I think this is going to be a different Patriots offense in the last 5 weeks of the season.
It may be. And also, Andre, you talk about the similarities between the Texans and the Cowboys. I think one of the big differences is the Texans' offensive line not nearly as good. So I think that's something to keep in mind as well.
I also don't think Brady was that bad against Dallas.
I think he's fine.
I think the numbers, it was 17-37, look much worse than he actually played.
Yeah,
I thought he made some good throws. There was some drops.
I mean, one of the throws, the last play of the game, was like he was trying to run the clock out.
Right.
Yeah, good point. All right. Monday night.
And he didn't. He failed.
He put the ball right in the Marines' hands. And he just wasn't able to haul it in.
A lot of touch on it, too.
Back of the end zone.
Okay, Monday night. This actually, I think this game is being underrated in terms of
I think it's great.
The matchup and really the importance of it. I think either one of these teams is still very much alive for a first-round bye. Either one is. I mean, they're both still alive for the number 1 seed if they get really hot. We got the Minnesota Vikings heading to Seattle to take on the Seahawks. The Seahawks coming off of an ugly but also kind of convincing win at Philadelphia. Whereas I think Minnesota coming off the bye. Seattle, Vegas calling this pretty much a split down the middle between the two teams. Seattle giving 3 points at home here. Ricky, who do you like?
Of the 6 games that we really dove into for this episode and the Thanksgiving edition, this is the one that gave me the hardest time. Yeah. As you mentioned, it's pretty evenly matched. It's some similar strengths in certain areas. It really a tough one to get a read on. A lot of trends are pointing towards Seattle in this one, from like the primetime narrative and how Kirk Cousins fares against winning teams. You get Seattle at home.
Minnesota as an underdog.
Minnesota is an underdog. So my initial lean was with Seattle, but I'm going to take the points. And I just think that, when it comes down to the red zone or on third down, I trust the Vikings defense a little bit more to make a stop. I look at the way Kirk Cousins has played recently. I think maybe that victory over Dallas is sort of you get the monkey off your back sort of thing.
Yeah,
maybe that can sort of catapult them to bigger wins down the road. I wasn't surprised that they struggled against Denver. Denver's defense is sneaky good, and that just going ahead of the bye with this matchup looming, that seemed like a perfect letdown spot for the Vikings. To their credit, they rallied back, won that game. So I don't know. The Vikings are a team. They've also beat up on some bad teams and lost to the Packers, Bears, and Chiefs. They've only beaten one team that right now would be in the playoffs. So there's certainly some issues there. But I don't know. Like I said, Kirk Cousins, he's thrown 1 interception since Week 6, a span of 5 games, 18 TDs to 1 pick since Week 4. I don't know. I'm going to take the points because I do think that this is – and Seahawks, they're a team that no matter what seem to be this past week notwithstanding, it's always within like a field goal or something. Yeah. At least it feels that way. Whether they win or lose, it's just always is tight. So if that's the case again this week, I'll take the points.
Yeah, Ricky, I'm going to agree with you. It's an evenly matched game. I kind of like the fact that Minnesota's a more complete team than Seattle. Seattle is like very Russell Wilson reliant. Say what you want about Kirk Cousins. Guy only has 3 interceptions this year. So let's not paint this guy to be Jameis Winston. He's completed nearly 71% of his passes, 3 picks. He's doing well lately. Big road win against the Cowboys. And Seattle, that offensive line, 7th worst sack rate allowed. Maybe Minnesota put some pressure on Seattle in this game. And it's a very difficult game to handicap, but I like the fact that the Vikings are getting points. and in an evenly matched game, I'll take Minnesota. I'm just gonna take the point. You got two even teams. Why not take the points? You know, it's not very scientific.
That's my logic.
Also, Seattle, 8 of their last 9 wins have come by 1 possession, so they play a lot of close games as well.
Yeah, I make it a sweep. I'll take the Vikings too. Seattle, for whatever reason, hasn't been as good at home, especially against good teams. Where they lose to New Orleans and Baltimore. They're 1-5 against the spread in their last 6 games as a home favorite. You look at Minnesota under Mike Zimmer when they have a rest advantage. They're 12-6 straight up, 10-8 against the spread. But they got a chance to keep within maybe win the game outright. I don't know. I mean, we'll be sitting here like previewing the Super Bowl with Seattle in it, and I'll still be like, I'm not sure how good the Seahawks are, but I'm still not sure how good the Seahawks are. I really don't get it. Like Russell Wilson is that good, I guess.
It's like it feels. I don't want to say fluky because that would do them a disservice, but there's a lot of reliance on big plays, like chunk plays that sort of come out of nowhere in which Wilson's improvising, and it's just like, I mean, I guess he's been doing it for several years now, so it is somewhat sustainable. I mean, but it just doesn't feel great when you're going into a game and you're putting a couple bucks down or whatever, and you're just relying on that.
Yeah, and it feels like they get not lucky, but they've been fortunate in some spots. Yeah. Where you look at the Philly game, like Eagles so banged up. Wentz clearly not right. Wentz even got hurt in that game. Some not fluky is a mean way to put it or a misleading way to put it, but that San Francisco game there was some stuff as well. So I don't know. It's just. I think they come back to earth eventually, but with that coach and quarterback combination, you never want to bet against them. But that's exactly what I will do here because I just think Minnesota's the better team, top to bottom. So.
Yep, I agree. We're more complete.
All right.
Just to go back on some of the trends that really do not paint our picks in a favorable light, but Seahawks
exciting.
18-2 straight up, 15-4-1 against the spread in home primetime games under Pete Carroll. So your
place is gonna be rocking.
Oh yeah,
holy moly.
And then the Vikings 3-9-1 straight up and against the spread with Kirk Cousins against teams with the winning records. They're 1-7-1 in such spots when on the road. So
interesting.
There you go.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. The narrative is already there if they lose this game. So
time to flip the script on Mr. Cousins.
Sure.
Yeah, Mike, you and I might look like idiots after that one.
Yeah, well. What else is new? It won't be the first time. Certainly won't be the last. So.
Wait, Ricky, you picked the Seahawks, the Vikings too, right?
Yeah, but I thought you were just giving me a pass on that one.
Yeah, I thought
I wouldn't look like an idiot.
Yeah, I wasn't really sure he was going there, but I mean, it's like I've looked like an idiot before, so.
Yeah, no. Sorry, I forgot to include Ricky in that assessment.
Yeah. Ricky also could look like an idiot.
Thank you.
Andre, you got anything else?
Yeah, I have a lock and upset because I did because you guys were lazy.
All right, sure. Give us your lock and upset, I guess.
And my lock is the Jets over the Bengals. Sam Darnold's playing some good football. And my upset is Steelers over the Browns. Big Doug Hodges guy. I like the fact that he's starting this week. And the Browns will be without Myles Garrett, so unfortunately we won't see Myles Garrett duck hunting.
We will not.
Speaking of good quotes, I mentioned the Weddle quote, but Mike Tomlin had a pretty good quote about Duck Hodges as well.
Yeah, he basically said he's better than Mason Rudolph because he hasn't killed us.
Yeah.
Yeah. He hasn't.
So.
AFC North football, baby.
Yep, can't wait. Gonna be that game is gonna be worth keeping an eye on because there's a chance that could just evolve into a massive street brawl. So.
Yeah, and also, guys, we forgot to even mention that Oakland Kansas City game is a pretty big one too.
Yeah, there's actually another game. I guess that who does Cleveland play? Yeah, Pittsburgh, right? Yeah, duh. I mean, that's a big.
That's a big wild card.
Yeah, that's a huge game.
Tennessee, Indianapolis. That's another wild card implication.
Yeah.
We had a lot of good games this week.
Yep, that's gonna be a good one. Starting on Thursday, so make sure you check out the Thanksgiving preview if you haven't already. Or if this is Saturday, go back and listen to it anyway and make us feel better about ourselves. Rate, review, subscribe on iTunes or on YouTube or both. Comment if you want on YouTube. Do that. Enjoy your Thanksgiving. Spend as much time or as little time with your family as you please. Drink as much or as little as you please. Or do a combination of both because God knows you're probably going to need it. So
just do what makes you happy.
Yeah, and if that's
be thankful throughout the process.
If that includes watching David Bleh on Thursday morning or Thursday afternoon, do that. So Anything else, Ricky?
No, I got nothing.
Anything else, Andre?
Well
I'm done.
said. Well said.
Alrighty, we'll be back again next week. Thanks for joining us on the spread. See you then.